Thank you, Acting President. I rise to make a brief contribution to Ms Crozier's motion and the proposed amendments from the government. Can I say just in hindsight, I've really enjoyed previous Commonwealth Games. I worked at the Commonwealth Games in 1982 in Brisbane as a driver for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I had a hoot. It was fantastic, and it was really good. I mean, the Queen attended. The entertainment was led off by a maybe not so famous entertainer now by the name of Rolf Harris. And I have to say, the after party that was held for the people who worked in the media and for all of the games administrators and managers was fantastic. If you were poor, like I was, because one aspect of it was the hostesses who were dressed up like they were in a 1920s speakeasy with trays of cigarettes, because the function was sponsored by Rothmans Tobacco. And I guess I raise Rolf and Rothmans because times change and priorities change as our society changes. And if we fast forward to the 2006 Games, they certainly had their moment, with all of those fantastic metal fishes floating down the Yarra River. And it was sort of like, I think in hindsight, a bit of a sort of anemic version of the sort of post-2000 Sydney Olympics. But again, it didn't have anything like that sort of excitement and engagement and sense of the Commonwealth that there was in '82. 2018 on the Gold Coast, I think half of Melbourne didn't necessarily notice it, and God knows we love our sport here in Melbourne. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is that in looking at this $6 billion cancellation, and if it was a $6 billion cancellation, was it more of a mercy killing than a strategic change? And more importantly, how do we ensure that the people of Victoria get to understand what happened? Because I'm sure everyone in this house, I mean, the one thing we all share is that sense of what the. How did we get to this situation, and how do we get an explanation of it? Now, before I proceed, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the disappointment of the athletes who will be denied a significant opportunity to compete and to compete before a home crowd. Yeah? I mean, I think Richard Burton said that life is not a rehearsal. And for athletes with a very finite life in their chosen sport, with a few prominent exceptions, thank goodness for the lawn bowls, but for most athletes, this is a rare opportunity that they have lost. And so our sympathies go out to them in losing that opportunity. And likewise to regional Victorians who in small businesses across the state, we're obviously looking to opportunity for some growth and some business. Likewise, I can understand their disappointments. So we now have this claim from the government that the cost of these games has blown out to $6 billion or thereabouts. If that's correct, then I think most Victorians would support the cancellation. It's not worth $6 billion, we just can't afford it. It would be insane to proceed. And I think most Victorians would like to understand how. And if we think about this in that old context of bread and circuses, I guess the saying might go that if you're short of bread, you need to think about how much you spend on circuses. And so, again, was this a good decision? Was this an understandable decision? That is what the people of Victoria want to know. How did this happen? So today we are presented with two options. A potentially politically motivated inquiry by people in this place that could easily become self-serving, but may not. Or an independent inquiry by our highly respected Auditor General, with the greater powers of inquiry that come with that statutory office. Now, it has been put to me, and I don't know whether it's correct or not, that the Auditor-General does not have those powers. So, Ms Crozier, you just said that to me a minute ago, and look, if that is the case, I'm concerned, but again, I've received advice to the contrary, and I don't know which is correct. So, I guess I'm interested in the proposition that was put forward by Mr Limbrick, which is that the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. The terms of reference are the same, the subject matter is the same, the inquiry participants, in terms of who's at the top table, would obviously be different. So this is a question of whether we risk a political sideshow, on one hand, to put it bluntly, or we allow a dive into the numbers by an independent organisation that has demonstrated skills in audit and investigation, and that exists for just such a purpose. If we want real answers, rather than political point scoring, I feel that the Auditor-General path should be preferred in the first instance. As Mr Limbrick suggested, once we have received the Auditor-General's report, we as a chamber would be in a position to decide whether or not we wish to pursue this investigation further. Accordingly, the vote of the Legalise Cannabis Victoria in this chamber will reflect in the first instance the amendment from the government to refer this to the Auditor-General. Thank you.